hello. First of all, I just want to make sure that you can all hear me. So for those who I can see, show me a finger, right, like this. Good, thank you very much. Right, okay, so I'll be talking for some time about this idea of, what seems to be wrong with our English. Let me start by the context. This is a very special context because, well, if you see behind me, I am in my kitchen, and possibly you are at home, okay? And possibly you are in your room, in your bedroom, dining room. I don't know which place you have chosen, because we are all at home. Most of us are at home, okay? We should all be at home, okay? But this is the context. So it's a very special context. On the other hand, the context is that, well, I am in Chile. I am in a very small village, okay? I am facing the ocean, the Pacific, right? And at times I can hear the Pacific. I can see the Pacific very close. And it is evening here. It's getting colder and colder. Right? This is what the weather is like at the moment. And I haven't left my house since, I think that I came here on the 14th of March, and I haven't left since. Not even to do any shopping at all. So somebody does that for me. So I'm very lucky. And why am I in my kitchen? Okay, the first thing is because this is the place where most things happen in my life, right? So I wanted to open my this intimate place of mine, okay, to you, so as to generate this warm atmosphere that we all need today. Because at the moment, we all need a special atmosphere, because I understand that some people are tense, some people are worried, some people are, nervous. And the point is that we are all right to be the way we are, but we have to be optimistic, okay? So I wanted to share this idea of, talking about language and what is wrong with our language from a very optimistic view. So I'm going to take it from the very beginning, and I will show you some strategies to overcome this symptom, as I call it, this disease. Now, in this kitchen, I have met friends where we cook. There are in my house there are no visitors. There are friends. People come. If they come for the first time, they're not offered anything. They have to take part, an active role in my kitchen. So around this kitchen, around this place, we cook, we drink, we prepare food. We talk, we chat, and we're going to be doing something similar. This is why I wanted you to be in my kitchen today. I'm going to be sharing with you a PowerPoint presentation, okay, so that I can react to the ideas. And my suggestion is that I'll be talking for a while, and after that while, I might stop, so that in case you have any comments or any questions that you would like to make. But at the same time, at the very end of the session, I am also going to offer you the chance to talk, okay? Now, let me see if I am ready with this. I think I am. Yeah, that's right. Can you see that? Your finger? Yes, right. So what's wrong with my English? And this question seems to be, something that applies to anything and to everything we do in life, right? When people look at you, you say, hey, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with my hair? What's wrong with my clothes? What's wrong with my image? What's wrong with, it's because we feel kind of, insecure about certain things in life, okay? But what's wrong with my English is because the moment we speak a language which is not ours, we feel that there may be something wrong. Let me confess something. When I was younger, and please try to keep this in mind, you have to say when I was younger, not when I was young, because when you say when I was young, it means that you're not young anymore. But when I was younger, you're still young, all right? So being optimistic. Let me show you this. When I was younger, I remember that whenever I had something to say in English, particularly those who had, let's say, better English, let's say, usually turned to me and they tended to say, pardon, sorry, yeah. And I thought that it was because my English was wrong. Later in life, I discovered that many people say pardon because they want to hear again, or sometimes because they are surprised, or sometimes because they don't know exactly whether they understood well or not. Okay, so they want to make sure that this is clear. So what's wrong with my English has to do with that. And it seems to be, some kind of, some kind of disease when you have this attitude towards what's wrong with me, what's wrong with life, okay? What's wrong with my work, what's wrong with my relationship or whatever. So we have some kind of disease right? And the first symptoms with what's wrong with my English, I would say, are these. This is the first symptom that I find. Is we tend to feel that there is lack of confidence when we speak English. After all, English is not our language, so we feel kind of, not completely confident when speaking another language. So we say, should I say this or no? How do you say this? I don't know if it happens to you, but many people turn to the person sitting next when they are in a meeting, so as to ask the next person what the word is. They say, what is the word for this? They turn to the person sitting next, and the person sitting next has no idea, right? Because we do not feel confident enough, okay, when we're speaking in English. It's valid. It's quite valid, because it's not our language. We borrow this language, and the same applies to all languages. We borrow a language for a while, okay? This takes us to shyness. So we may be shy. Some of us may be shy. And some of us is interesting, because some of us may be shy in our own language, but not in English. Or the opposite. Shy in English, but not in our own language, okay? I don't know if you have noticed that some people, when they speak in their own language, they tend to move. They tend to, use both verbal and non-verbal communication. At the moment they have to turn into English or into French or into any other language, they become kind of paralyzed. They don't want to move anymore. Okay, they seem to be shy. But English offers us, and any other language offers us, the possibility to have a new personality, okay, a new style, a new way of being. And this is why sometimes you feel much more comfortable in English than in Spanish, if Spanish is your language. But it can be, this is also valid for those who speak Spanish as the first language, or as the second language, or English as the first language, and so on and so forth. Another symptom for this disease is that we are afraid of making mistakes, right? We say, no, what about if this is wrong, okay? And mistakes at all levels when speaking English. So it is safe, right? It is safe when we are silent. When we are silent, it's quite safe. We're not taking any risk at all. So we do not offer the chance to make mistakes, and people will not turn to us, because when we make mistakes, people turn to us, right? They look at us, or sometimes they correct. Teachers are the main people who correct mistakes in English, by the way. People whose language is, if it is English, people whose language is English, they do not necessarily correct. If they understand, they just tolerate, okay? They don't care. They understand, and that's it. But teachers, even if they don't want to correct, there seems to be, some kind of natural attitude towards correction, okay? So there's also this fear of making mistakes. Sometimes another symptom of this disease, or what's wrong with our English, is that we don't feel that there is a need to use English. Ages ago, not long ago though, very few people travel, and very few people had the chance to visit another country. So in my country, very few people came to this country, and very few people from this country went to other countries. I mean, very few people actually traveled, okay? At the moment, we are experiencing these special circumstances, so it's quite common as well. Practically nobody's traveling today, okay? But eventually we will go back to traveling, of course, right? But in the past, nobody came to my country where we could be exposed to English, so there was no need. But this is not valid now, because people are exposed to language. But there may be a lack of motivation. You say, I'm tired, I'm sleepy, I don't want to talk. Or sometimes the conversation, the topic is not attractive. The topic is not attractive. We're not motivated to talk about that. You say, no, I don't want to talk about it. I'm not. You don't even say it, but you keep it to you, right? You have lack of motivation. So this is another symptom for not using English. What has happened? What has generated this, what I call disease? Okay, there are symptoms. So far we have 4 symptoms, right? But these symptoms have taken place as a result of something, of course. So what has happened to us, okay? And the invitation is to think of this, because this is something connected to our profession, language teaching. Perhaps there has been obsessive and excessive exposure to the rules of the language, okay? So the S, third person singular, has been there, very often, okay? Or the do and the does, or perhaps the rising intonation and the full intonation, right? Or the stress pattern, okay? Or words ending in ness, and words ending in hood, and others ending in ship, and they have to be learned by heart. So there's been a lot of exposure to the rules of the language. So when there's a lot of exposure, you tend to follow the rules, and if you break the rules, you're in danger. Okay, so perhaps this is one of the reasons as to why we have developed this disease, right? Also, because even if we learn the rules, there are very many opportunities to use English. Okay, there are very many opportunities to use English, because if it is classroom English, there are lots of students in class, and there are very few opportunities to use a lot of English in class. Okay, so but there are more opportunities. This is a good thing. Today there are more opportunities than ever. Okay, to use English, not only in class but outside the lesson and outside the classroom. Okay, but this is another reason. Okay, another reason is that success tends to be interpreted in language learning as accuracy. Okay, as accuracy. If you say things correctly, you are successful. Okay, if you say things with a good pronunciation, you are successful, right? If your grammar is good, you are successful. So you are not only born, but you are sort of you grow up with the feeling that success is connected to accuracy. Let me give you an example. I have shared this with some of my colleagues. I remember having had a student of mine ages ago, okay, who was so good at learning grammatical structures. He could manage lots of them, if not all of them. Every time I had a chance to speak to him, he was impressed by the structures I was using. So at one particular moment, I may have said something to him, and he said to me, "Oh, that is the past perfect tense. Wow." I said, "Hey, what's the point?" "Oh, that's a passive voice, isn't it?" I said, "Wow." And he said this in his own language, not even in English, because it would have been nice if this had happened in English. Because he was showing that he was a successful student because he could manage the accuracy, right? The same applies to another student of mine, unfortunately to say this, because they are very successful students at all levels. But I remember special cases. This was a lady. She was a teacher of Spanish. She was a writer, and she was a lawyer. So you can imagine and you can expect more or less the kind of performance of that person in language learning. And I remember in one test, it was a speaking test, I asked her, "Tell me about your routine. What time do you get up every day?" And she said to me, "Oh, I get up at 6 o'clock. And I thought it was very early. So my reaction to that was, "Wow, that's very early." And she said, "Moment." Some of my colleagues know about this, okay? She said, "Moment. I get up at 6 o'clock every day." Now, negative. "I don't get up at 6 o'clock every day." I said, "Well, do you or don't you?" Just a minute. Interrogative. "Do I get up at 6 o'clock?" I said, "Well, that's great. She can manage the language accurately, right?" So showing that she was successful, okay? And another reason as to why this disease has been generated is because mistakes tend to be taken as a signal or a sign of failure. I mean, if you make a mistake, you have failed. Okay, if you say something that is not supposed to be said, you have failed. And mind you, this is not only in grammar, okay, or at the grammatical level. It's also at the semantic level, in terms of meaning, in terms of chunks, or in terms of vocabulary. And it's also the level of phonology, the wrong pronunciation of the, so, but at the same time, it can be also a mistake in cultural behavior, social behavior, saying something beautifully said with the right grammar, but said to the wrong person under the wrong circumstances. Okay, that's also a mistake, right? Say somebody you're meeting for the first time, you've been invited to have dinner with the family, and then all of a sudden you ask the father of the family, "How much do you earn? How much do you earn?" And the person says, "Whoa, what sort of thing is this? I mean, perfect grammar, perfect intonation, but this is a social mistake." So there are other types of mistakes. Mistakes are taken to be signs of failure. So these are some of the reasons as to what has happened, okay? And also correction. There's nothing against correction, okay? But correction is not a learning strategy, and some people have taken it as a learning strategy. Correction is a tool that helps us to see whether they have been learning or not. And not even correction coming from somebody, somebody who knows, but it can come from somebody else, or even from the same person who is making a mistake, right? So correction as a learning strategy has also generated this attitude of, "No, I don't want to talk, I don't feel confident enough," and so on and so forth, right? Okay, so to the point, we want to improve. We want to overcome this disease. We want to change. We want to get rid of this. What's wrong with my English? Okay. We want to say it doesn't really matter. I mean, I want to communicate. I want to say what I want to say. I want to express my ideas. If I don't use my English, I might, miss opportunities in life. Okay, or I might not say what I want to say to the person I want to say it. If I have so many different ideas, on me, saying that you can't say because if you don't know it, don't say it. I might not coexist with other people in English. So my suggestion is, well, not just my suggestion. I have collected suggestions from different people, different strategies through my life, and there may be others. You may have some others as well, so as to improve our speaking and our spoken English. Okay. So how can we be better? How can we be better when using English, spoken English? I don't know if you have ever recorded yourself, right? You have this might be quite familiar to some of you. Yeah, right. You say, yeah, I record myself. When recording yourself, you can even have fun. Okay, you may even change your voice. Although some people intentionally, they change their voices because they don't like their voices. Okay, when they hear themselves, they say, "That's not me. That's not my. Is that my voice?" No, and this is us. This is what we are. But it's interesting to see whether what we are saying has a certain effect. You can identify intonation patterns. You can identify speed. Whether you are natural, authentic when you're talking. So I think recording our voices is a good strategy, right? So I highly recommend it. I did it. I haven't done it recently, but I think it's good. One strategy that I think is also nice is reading aloud. And here, let me go back to school. And I don't know if you have seen nursery school teachers. Possibly there may be some nursery school teachers attending this talk, and how effective they are. They are very effective because when they read aloud, they read with such an intention, such involvement that they're convincing. Okay, they say, for example, in this little house there was a lady, a huge lady, and children are like this because they are very, very convincing. Okay, because they really believe in what they are saying. So when you read aloud, it's not a question of just reading aloud what you have received, but try to read aloud. I did it. I haven't done it, but I did it. And I remember I did it in silence and on alone because I was ashamed of doing it in public. But in my room, sometimes I read aloud and I pretended, I pretended that I was a child reading aloud with the voice of a child. I pretended that I was an old man, an elderly person reading aloud. I pretended that I was reading aloud to 40 people and to one person. I pretended that when reading aloud, I was whispering to somebody, right? And so I gave some kind of elements to my reading aloud. And I think this has, to a certain extent, given me not a better English, but perhaps more confidence to say things, okay? More confidence to say things. What I'm saying is not everything that is being said here today is because this will work to all of you. Try certain things. And some of you may have already tried, okay? But this is interesting. Another strategy that I use is, fixed phrases. And you can't imagine how impressive you can be when you use kind of patterns, right? Such as to my surprise, yeah? And we know this. This is something I have seen in many of us. Okay? We know all of these. We know to my surprise. We know to a certain extent. We know in the light of. We know in the hope of. We know that. But we hardly ever use that. Okay, so I wonder why. And it's interesting to see to what extent we can sort of sophisticate our language and become better speakers, right? So next time you're asked about the shopping center, whether it was open or not, rather than saying yes, it was open, you say, oh, to my surprise, it was open. It shouldn't have been. Okay, wow. People will turn to you and say, to my surprise, okay, and then you will become some kind of model to others. Okay, so using fixed phrases or semi-fixed patterns. Okay. You can also learn about collocation, and this is a fascinating field. Okay, there are certain things in English that you do, and there are certain things in English that you make. There are certain things in English that you take, and there are certain things in English that you carry, right? There are certain things in English that you do with certain verbs, and there are other things that you do with other verbs. There are things that you watch, and there are other things that you see. right? So when people are talking to you, what do you say? You say, oh, I see, oh, I see. Or do you say, oh, I watch, oh, I watch, or oh, I look? You see, because there are collocations at the level of the words that are with them, you know, words which are accompanying others, or collocation in a social sense. Okay, does this collocate in this context where I am speaking? Okay, so, and it's good to learn about collocations, right? I have my models of inspiration, so every time I hear somebody who is my model of inspiration, I make a note of things that I'm impressed about and I will have to use later. Okay, of course I make sure if they exist as well, because some of them may not exist. Use short automatic responses. Using short automatic responses has to do with this idea of saying, indeed, yeah, sure, definitely, no, not at all. Okay, short automatic responses. I don't know if you have tried this, but I once did, not very often, but I once did. In your lesson, people usually say yes and no, yes and no. And let me go back to once in a meeting, somebody said to me, it was in my own language, somebody said to me, I don't understand a single word of English. Okay, so I said, well, but you might understand something. You might understand, at least you may identify that when English is being spoken, you might say that's English, although you don't understand. And he said, well, I know when English is being spoken. Okay, that's the first stage in understanding, to identify the language. Okay, so you understand something. And then I said, possibly you also know how to say yes and no in English. And I used Spanish at that moment. And he said, oh, yes, of course. You say, and he said that with, Latin American pronunciation, he said yes, and he said no. I understand you say yes, and I understand you say no. And I said, look, you know what? When you engage in conversation, most of your conversation is yes or no, yes or no. So we say perhaps 50% of your conversation is yes or no. You can even go to an English-speaking country and use only yes and no, right? And communicate effectively. And you could even go to a country where, even in another language, in German, in I don't know, in Dutch, if you know yes or no, you can go into a restaurant, you can say yes, pointing to something that you want to eat, you say yes, yes, meaning I want to eat it, and then the person says the amount that you have to pay, and you show the money, and you say yes, with a different intonation, meaning, is that right? Yes. And the person might say something, and then gives you some money back. Then you go to your table, you sit and you eat, and you have been appropriate. Okay, using short automatic responses. And what have I done with my students? I try to limit this, and I say, let's not say yes. In this class, we're going to use other alternatives. So can we first think of all the different words that we can use or expressions to mean yes in English and to mean no in English, and let's make a list, right? And from now onwards, we're not going to say yes, we're not going to say no, we're going to say one of these, right? So the list is certainly, definitely, absolutely, by all means, indeed, and so on and so forth. And then they have to say that. So when someone says yes, people, the rest of the class, turns to the student saying, oh, certainly. And then this gives, the chance for them to expand their vocabulary and also to reinforce, I would say, confidence, okay? Oh, yeah, another strategy. Many people say, no, nothing. What do you think of this? No, nothing. Do you have an idea? No, not really, okay? You were saying something to your friend. What was it? No, it wasn't very important, okay? Because it has to do with self-esteem. It's what I have in my mind, what I have experienced, what I have to say is not valid. It's not very important. It's not the same as your life. It's not the same as what other people say. Listen, everything you say matters. Everything you do matters. Everything you experience matters. I think that if you could write a book, and if you could write it well, it could become a bestseller, because every single individual is a bestseller by definition, okay? Because you can't say, what has happened to me, it's not something that has happened to other people. Oh, everyone has experienced something special in life. So talk about the things you do and see. Yeah, tell others. I was coming here, and then all of a sudden I saw somebody very funny and bad in the street. And talk about the things you do and see. Don't be afraid of doing that, because you always have something to say, and you always have something to see, of course, right? So, and at the same time, it's always good to think of this. Pause and silence. they are highly significant in communication. When people talk, that's one thing. And when people, do not, or they make a pause or silence, it's because there's something. There is something. It has the powerful meaning of silence is impressive, right? It's quite impressive because being well used, it can become highly communicative, right? So try to learn this, the art of making pauses and using silence. Okay, see what other people do. I've noticed, for example, that some of the people who communicate well, those I know, are usually, particularly in meetings, are those who do not say much, but they take notes. And then after the meeting is over, or we are getting close to the end of the meeting, they say something. They say, "Can I say something?" And then they kind of summarize what's being said, but at the same time, they have a better perception of what's happening because they have used, or they have taken advantage of silence. They have used silence creatively, and they look at people and they take notes, and then they are very clever in making points at the very end of the session. Okay, learned about chunking. Chunking is saying things well, chunks, such as similar to my surprise when you use chunks in context, right? And the more chunks you use, the more natural that you can become. So even if you're hesitating, you say, let me see, just a minute. I think I, this generates, some kind of different attitude towards the language. Okay, so using chunking, it's an important thing. I think that there are some very interesting ones. Okay, that we know some of them coincide with what we say in our language. And some of them are completely different from what we say. Yeah, but it's nice. There are some which start with by, for example, by the way, Oh, in a way, yeah, in a way, in some way. When you're saying that, it gives subtleness to your own language, to your idea. When you say, well, in a certain way, she's in a certain way, or in a way, or when you say things such as, I don't know, well, to sum up, or whatever comes to your mind, rather than using structures, grammatical structures. This gives, flesh to what you have to say. I know that some people have a special interest in some accents, and some of them who are really, followers of certain accents, they are usually also followers of certain cultures. Right, so whatever that culture generates is for them some sign of inspiration. So anything that comes from that country is inspiring, and they even, this is research. They can even have a good level of English because of that reason. Okay, because they have a special motivation to be part of that country, that culture, right? Or if you want to be part of that culture, you want to behave like that. I remember a teacher of mine ages ago when I was at the university. She said something very extreme, which I did not understand at the time, but it's something which I understood later. And to a certain extent, I think she was right. She said, if you want to speak good English, you have to think in English. Okay, I understand. You have to speak English. Okay, I understand. You have to behave in English. Okay, I tend to understand. You have to walk in English. How can you walk in English? You have to cough in English. You have to sneeze in English. You have to live your life in English. Because if you do that in English, you will forget who you are, and your language will improve because you'll be part of a different country. I said, that's very interesting, but it's an extreme case. How can I? It has to do with identity. I cannot lose my identity. However, today, the international identity is present everywhere. Okay. So if you love one particular culture and you would like to choose one particular accent, okay, try to see to what extent you can get close to that accent, okay, and you can imitate it, okay. You can imitate it, and if you like it, of course. If not, the best scenario is to use international accents, okay. That's the best scenario, okay. But it also generates impact, because if your accent is close to a good accent, I'm not saying that you have to be a native speaker, But if you are close to a good accent, your students and the people around you will be so touched and moved that they would like to hear you. They would like to be with you. They would like to interact with you. Okay. All right. Another strategy that I think is useful. This is to be done alone. So use a mirror and pretend that you're talking to somebody. Right. I did this when I was younger. Right. You pretend that you're somebody talking to somebody in the mirror, and if you adopt a role, much better. If you adopt a role and you say something. I remember a friend of mine, I haven't seen her for some time, but I remember she said to me once something which represents this idea. In the morning when she woke up, she usually said to herself in front of a mirror, "I want a good day today." Right? And it was very funny because, I mean, she said it to herself. Well, this seems to be kind of similar. Because if you talk to a mirror, you might find it silly. Okay, yeah, you might find it silly, but who cares? The most interesting things in life have to do with crazy things. Okay, if we adopt these sort of formal modes of interaction, we will be missing something important in life. Okay, having fun. Right. We can also learn about all intonation patterns. I remember. This was a teacher of phonology, I think, in Britain, once said to us, in case you do not understand when people are talking to you, think of the following. Try to follow the pattern of intonation, the patterns of intonation, because they are so significant, they are so communicative, right? The patterns of intonation. So usually when the pattern tends to go up, what is known as the rising intonation, is because the person is trying to say something positive to you, right? And if the pattern is kind of going down or falling intonation, it's because that seems to be something sad, okay, or something negative. So if you don't understand, at least you can say, if it's rising, you can say, "Oh, good, that's very interesting," even if you do not understand. But if the pattern is falling down, yeah, you might say, "Oh no, I am sorry," okay, because you're expressing sympathy to the person. Of course, you have the typical patterns that we have learned, when learning English, which is rising intonation, following intonation. But intonation, to me, is actually feeling what it is you want to express, right? Think of a simple hello, right? How many times do you say hello every day and you don't mean it? How many times you say good morning every day and you don't mean it? You say because you have to say, because it's part of social behavior, right? But some people say good morning, good morning, good morning. It's because you're there. Good morning because I'm here. We have to say good morning, and because it's the first person I've seen this morning, so I say good morning. Right? But some people say good morning, meaning I am very happy to see you. Good morning, meaning look how great to see you, and it has to do with intonation, right? Intonation. Children are very good at this because children say hello, hello, right? Because they mean what they want to say, or they say what they want to mean, right? So intonation patterns to me are very, I would say, highly communicative, and they have a very highly provocative intention. Okay, because through intonation you can identify when someone is sarcastic. It's not through the grammatical structure. It's not necessarily through lexis, but it is through the intonation pattern. Someone says hello, and then you say hello. How do you dare to say hello to me after what you've done? So this hello is different, okay? Hello, I'm questioning your hello. It's because of intonation. So intonation is present everywhere, right? Okay. So this is another strategy that I think is useful. And intonation at all levels. Not only it can be at word level, at phrase level, at sentence level. It doesn't matter how you use your intonation. Okay. As part of life, we have to interact people. We have to interact with others. We have to take the turn. We have to summarize. We have to, give an opinion. We have to change the topic. We have to learn this. It has to do with a certain style, okay? To interrupt and to interact politely. Politely because we have to generate a good atmosphere in interactions, okay? So, and successfully as well. So how do you do this? Well, observe those who communicate well. But I would say that the main idea behind this is that you talk to people, and sometimes you give a signal that you're about to interrupt. You say, yeah, through interaction, through intonation. You say, right, yeah, meaning I'm about to interrupt. But yes, I agree. Yeah, meaning I agree, but it's my turn. So, and then you have to make room. Now, some people are very good at this because they announce this. They say, right, that makes me think of something that happened to me once. But let me refer first to 3 things which I think are important to mention. Wow, this is going to be a long term. 3 things, right? So you have to learn how to, interact with people, with some other people, and also to be interrupted, because I think there are moments when you have to be interrupted and you have to understand it, okay? At the moment, nobody can interrupt me because, I have not given you the chance. But in genuine face-to-face communication, people interrupt me, and I interrupt people, and they interrupt me, okay? But it's a very healthy interruption, because, sometimes it has to do with this idea of exchanging views on something. And sometimes this is the most fascinating thing. Some people are talking about something, and then if you're not following the conversation, you might interrupt with something completely different. And people turn to you and they say, well, what does it have to do with what we're talking about? Oh, I don't know. I thought it was, no, sorry, forget it. Okay? But it has to do with this idea of interacting. So we also make mistakes at this level, right? We also make mistakes at this level. And when improving this, idea of my English is wrong, what's wrong with my English, add some kind of life to your English, right? Not only the structures, not only the pronunciation, not only the words, the lexicon, the chunks, but also feelings which have to do with, that's one. Ideas that we use to express that we are hesitating, to express that we can't remember, to express this idea of forgetting, or to encourage people to talk to you, to talk back to you, and say, right, really? Okay, echoing, such as, did you? No, when? Oh, tell me more. Okay, this generates a better English, I think, right? So using exclamation words, right? Oh, no, I can't believe it. You are here after all these years. Lots of things connected to the way you express your feelings and feelers, such as, you see what I mean? Or simply, I don't know, so forth. If there is a need, because somebody may not have understood your idea, you may feel the need to paraphrase, either because somebody has not understood your idea or because you have not understood somebody's idea, right? And paraphrasing, it's very easy to detect when somebody has not understood your idea. Okay, for those who are teachers, and I take it all of us are teachers, we are very good at observing. So when we are in front of an audience, we usually observe those who are bored, those who are worried, those who are distant, those who are attentive, those who seem to have a problem, okay, and those who don't understand. So we might paraphrase. If we are good at observing, we might identify, the moment when we need to paraphrase. What I actually mean is, that's paraphrasing. What I actually mean is, or also what you tend to say is you're paraphrasing. Oh, I like your idea. So you mean that you're paraphrasing. So paraphrasing gives us, more confidence, even though you might think that when paraphrasing, you want to make sure that you understand. No, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's good. It's good because this is an act of life. And anything that is an act of life seems to be good because it's what we do in life, okay? So, and life is connected to communication and how we do things in life. So, and I think there's one more. Yeah, well, constructions, contractions, we are familiar with these concepts such as don't, isn't, must have, should have, right? If you do not, that's not something that's not a contraction. If you do not use a construction, is it because you want to be emphatic, or it's because you are angry, or it's because, I don't know, you want to make sure that people understand. But nobody you say, no, I don't, no, you don't, shouldn't have been, it shouldn't have happened, rather it shouldn't have happened. okay? So this will make your language more natural, right? So the idea is to overcome this moment, okay? To overcome the moment of saying, my English may be right or wrong, but it's not my language, therefore I don't dare to use it because I make a mistake, I may not feel confident enough, or I might say that, people might judge my English. This is something I cannot ignore today. We teachers of English, in general, this is my perception through my life, my years of experience. I have seen that we teachers of English are very good at judging, right? And we are the first people to judge the English of those who are in our profession, okay? So whenever somebody says something in an audience, right, we tend to judge the language first and the idea second, okay? And I think it's a good idea to talk about, the language that is being used, right? But at the same time, the idea, because if we do not use the idea, it seems that we are not paying attention to the intention, okay? If you go to a restaurant in the city of San Francisco, just to mention one, okay, and you are with somebody else, right, and you have to use English, and when you start using English, you call the waiter if there's still waiters coming to the table, okay, and then you speak in English. When you speak in English, the waiter understands perfectly, but you make lots of mistakes. Mistakes at the level of phonology, mistakes at the level of lexics, but you're having fun with your friend and you're saying things to the waiter. And the waiter says, oh, right, well, I understand. Oh, you mean this? Oh, that's all right, no problem. So you want two? Okay, yeah, two. Right, two of those, right. You also want this? Okay, yeah, fine. And if there is a teacher around, a teacher of English, let's say, sitting behind, next door, next table, possibly that teacher is going to be correcting, either in his or her mind. And if the person dares to do that, might turn to the person and say, you don't say people is, sorry, I'm a teacher, you say people are, okay? Because we tend to, behave in such a way that we might be, I'm not saying we are, but we might be responsible for what some of the things have happened. So it's not so as to think that our English is wrong. It's not completely so, because, also society sometimes, it shows that you speak good English because you have good grammar. This is traditional. It's been part of the history of language, okay? Incidentally, this so-called RP pronunciation, RP, the British pronunciation RP, is received pronunciation because, I don't know if you know, it is said that it was because the people with that pronunciation in Britain, Victorian age, of course, were well received at the homes they visited, okay? When they visited different homes, they had this pronunciation, they were well received because they had a well received pronunciation, okay? And this became received pronunciation later, and now it's known as RP. So people with an RP accent are not necessarily well received today, okay? But they were well received in the past, okay? People with an attitude to interact with others tend to be better received, I would say. So, back to symptoms of the disease, and then I'll give some general conclusions just to give you the chance to make comments. So we have said that we are in this field of, feeling that our English, there is something wrong with our English, or there should be something wrong with our English because I don't dare to talk. Well, let me first say that it will always be like this, because English and any language is something that's always growing. It will never finish. Grammar finishes one day, pronunciation finishes one day, vocabulary never finishes. And ways of interacting will never finish. Okay? There are different ways of interacting today as there were in the past, and there will be more in the future. In fact, today, because of the situation that we are experiencing, we are interacting differently, right? We are keeping social distancing, right? We're not touching, lots of things. This might even continue for some time after we go back to our normal life, okay? But in fact, this is something that has happened. My first idea was, maybe it is because there's been an excess in exposure to the rules of the language. Excess. The exposure has been excessive too much of everything in terms of rules. You have to do this. This is what you have to do. This is what you have to say, right? This is how you have to show me that you have learned this in your test. Lack of opportunities, right, to use English. This has been another reason as to why this has happened. Accuracy, as I said, as a sign of success. I mean, you are successful if you're accurate, right? Mistakes as a sign of failure, right? And it's also connected to schooling. School and education is usually something that is taken to mean success. But life is not always success. We know that we also have to face failure. But unfortunately, schools do not prepare for failure. They prepare for success, right? So it will be interesting to see to what extent, we could add something connected to failure. Because if somebody is not good at math or if somebody is not good at history, that doesn't mean that the person is a failure. Okay. Anyway, mistakes as a sign of failure. If I say people is, it's failure. If I say I actually don't understand, it's failure, right? If I use the wrong intonation, it's failure. The wrong pronunciation is failure, right? And correction as a learning strategy is another of the reasons as to why this has happened. Okay. So some conclusions, right? Okay, let me see some conclusions, some ideas. These are all my ideas. Of course, you may agree or disagree, but I wanted to share this with you because I thought it's nice. It's good to break the pattern and to talk about the things you believe in. So, some other people might say something different and, we might generate interesting, conversations later. Do dare to say what you have in mind. We all have ideas in mind, but we do not always dare to communicate. We always say, no, nothing, no. What do you say? What do you think about this? No, nothing really. This is very, very, I don't know if it is being shared, but in our country, it's very common. Many of the people who have ideas, you say, what do you think of this? No, not really, nothing. But you were saying something to your friend. Yeah, but it's silly. It's silly. Okay. It tends to be some kind of social pattern. My suggestion is please dare to say what you have in mind. If you're wrong or if it's not convenient, see what happens and then negotiate, exchange views about that. Okay, why don't you dare to say what you have in mind? Okay, so because your idea. One student of mine said to me, no sir, because my idea is silly. I said, but is it your idea? Yes. So it can't be silly because it's yours. But it's silly. No, it's yours. You have to like it. You have to love it. You have to love it. You have to cultivate it, and you have to show it to others. So believe in you. Dare to say what you have in mind. We always have different things in mind, right? Being shy, who cares? It's a personal feature of personality. You can be shy. You can still speak English. Okay, you can be, not a very talkative person, but you can still speak English, right? Being shy is you can be shy as you can be talkative, or but it's part of a personal feature. So don't think that because of that you cannot use your ideas, right? No, right? Another idea that I have in mind is don't be afraid of making mistakes. I have dared to invent words, mind you, and sometimes I have realized that some people have followed me, okay, and they are using the words. Now, let me give you an idea. Once I had to speak about my nationality, and I had to speak about the nationality of those who come from Britain. And I didn't know how to say it in English, but I was talking to English-speaking people, and I simply spoke about Chileanhood. I said Chileanhood. And they understood, and we continued talking about Chileanhood. Later in life, I think somebody told me, yeah, it is possible to say Chileanhood, but why did I say Chileanhood and not Chilean chips, for example? I don't know. I just said Chileanhood, and we kept on talking about that. But then, on a different occasion, I was tempted to say Britishness. And people understood that, Britishness. Even some people from Britain would say Britishness. And then I said, do you use that word? No, but I have heard that, so let's keep on talking about that. So we're talking about our nationality. So you can invent Peruvianness, perhaps, okay, Mexicanness, I don't know. But if you try, you will see what the impact this might generate, okay? And if there's no impact and people follow you, it's because there's communication, right? And you will be kind of, reinforced. in your way of speaking. So don't be afraid of making mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. We make mistakes in our own language. Native speakers of English make mistakes in their own language, you know, and sometimes we know more, sometimes because we ask them, I'm talking about native speakers, about certain rules, and they have no idea. But the same happens to us. If our language is Spanish, some people might turn to us and may ask about the Spanish language. I mean, we may have no idea if we have not learned Spanish formally to teach it, okay? So, but we all make mistakes. We also make mistakes in Spanish, okay? Yeah, I can't think of any other moment, but I mean, we make mistakes in Spanish or in French or in, you know, native speakers. So do not change, you don't have to change your mood or personality when you're talking. Why is it that when you're talking, remember at the beginning of this chat, I said, this is my kitchen. I want you to feel at ease. This is a warm place. I want to open this intimate room in my house because I feel at ease. I feel comfortable. And why is it that people speak comfortably when they're speaking in their own language? And the moment they have to change, they speak differently. They are kind of, you know, paralyzed. Think of the following. This is something I call the cocktail effect, or if you prefer, the cocktail syndrome. When you go to a cocktail, irrespective of the language you are going to say, if you don't know anybody, you feel intimidated. You don't know exactly what to say. You start smiling, you know, in all directions. You don't know anybody, but you smile. Okay, yeah. If you see somebody familiar, you might smile, you know, much more overtly, right? But you still smile. You don't know what to say. You get close to somebody, then you smile, and then you might say things such as, "So, where are you from? Okay, well, they were here. Why were you invited? I was invited because," and then you generate. Why do we get drinks in cocktail parties? To destroy this idea of feeling intimidated, of course. What happens after 2 hours in the cocktail party or 3 hours? You can't stop talking, irrespective of the language, okay? And you're making mistakes if it's your language or if it's another language, you borrow languages, but you are talking a lot. So it has to do with this idea of freedom, I think, right? So, and this is my last idea is create, interpret, and enjoy communication from your perspective, you know, your contribution. You are the person you are, so make your own contributions to communicate. And try to remember that, after all, in case you need this support, not everything that is said is meant. So if you don't understand, don't worry. There are many times when you hear people and you don't understand what they're trying to say, okay? Yeah, it happens.